Hi, Sagittarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to your January 2026 Astro Update. It's Rena here, and I am a Sag, so I'm very interested about what's going to happen in the new year. 2026 is a one universal year. If you know anything about numerology, you know that, well, you probably don't have to know much about it to know that ones are the beginning of a new cycle. And also, the energy of one is about newness. And so, January being a 1 month in a 1 year is really something. So, we're going to feel that sense of new beginnings even stronger in January of 2026. I'm trying to remember, I think the last several years we have had retrogrades, sometimes Mercury retrogrades, but also last year it was Mars retrograde that was coming into the new year. And, you know, when personal planets are retrograding, it can still feel like there is some unfinished business, things are up in the air. So I think it's going to be a great start to the new year. For Sag, I'm recording this in the first week of December. I think it's the first week. It's like time is, yeah, it's the first week. It's only the 5th. So there's a lot of December yet ahead. And there's a lot of Sagittarius energy in December. But as we progress through December, we start to get into more of the Capricorn energy. And of course, at the solstice, the sun goes into Capricorn. For Sag, this is the second house of earned income. And by the way, I'm just giving a little overview of December for those people who are listening, because I'm posting this pretty early in the month. And so some of you may not have listened to the December report. So I just want to give you some idea of what's happening, because the Capricorn is the second house of earned income, and that means that it will trigger our money sector. And this is, of course, very important in life. And so mid-December, Mars goes into Capricorn, and there is more of a push to go out and get your money on in whatever way that is true for you, whether you are earning it or if you are retired. You may think of yourself like, what are some ways I can do this where I don't have to really give up a lot of my free time, but I can still get that? You have this sense of urgency when it comes to money. And then on the 21st, the sun goes there. And then on the 24th, Venus goes into Capricorn. And that is significant because Venus is the ruler of the second house. So it has a natural affinity for that second house. So as we go into January, on the first of the month, which by the way will be a 1-1-1 portal, we have Mercury going into Capricorn. And so this will give you a sense of some sort of mental connection with money. Usually I think of either trying to manage your money by coming up with, I dare say the word budget when I'm speaking of a fellow Sag, because I think we're kind of allergic to budgets, to be honest with you. But we kind of, because we want the freedom to be able to spend money as we see fit. We don't want to be forced to do so. But sometimes it can really make you feel good, especially if you know that you have like a certain amount of money to play with at a certain time, that you can kind of get really creative about it. So whether you want to call, I'd rather call it something other than budget, or you want to kind of come up with a blueprint or a framework when it comes to money, call it that. And also ways that you can make money. Ideas may come to you in the form of that. On the 3rd, we have a full moon at 13 degrees of Cancer. So the beginning of the year is already getting off to a very active start. A full moon can bring things to a head, to culmination, and this is in the 8th house, which is other people's money. But it can also be in terms of, can have some kind of a flavor that connects with like domestic affairs, okay? Because Cancer rules the 4th house of home and family. So you might be discussing shared resources with a family member, if you have a parent who is a Cancer, or like a brother or sister or something like that, there could be something that you're finding out about them, like an immediate family member, and that you didn't know about before, and somehow it pertains to money, and it's really important, it can run the gamut. So I was going to say, like, even deceptive things, because the 8th house can be like secrets, and they could be coming out, and they can even be of, like, we call like a taboo nature, or you could even call it like a nature that is very I hesitate to use the word unpleasant, but something very unwanted, that you have to face, because and it might show someone in a new light, but it needed to come out. The 8th house is about purging, and even within yourself, it could be some kind of emotional. This is a water full moon. It can be, and this is a water house. It can be like your shadow self. I always say that Sagittarians are like puppy dogs, and although I wouldn't, I wouldn't characterize myself as much of a puppy dog, because although I have that side to me, I have my sun in the 8th house. So I know about the 8th house, the scorpionic side of things. And like me, some of you may be a Scorpio in your Vedic chart. You should check it out. If you have felt that you are more of a complicated person than a typical Sag is depicted as, go, find a free Vedic chart calculator. You might be really blown away by that. But in any case, the full moon can bring some kind of inheritance, perhaps, if there is some kind of one to be had, or just money that is coming from, and this would typically be something that has been in the works, because the full moon brings something to fruition. And but like I said, there could be for some people, it might be something that you find out that was deceptive, even because it was being hidden from you, and now it's in the fullest light. Another way this could play out is with a spouse. If they have been going into an account, and you didn't know about it, and then you get the bank statement, and you're like, oh my God, they've been taking all these withdrawals from our account. And you find out about it, because sometimes Sagittarius can be very, dare I say, neglectful about the little details. And you may let things go, like maybe looking at bank statements for months. And then you're like, okay, I'm getting this overdraft or something. What's going on here? And you find out that your significant other has been taking money out. And so that can be an unpleasant surprise, but it's one of those things that you have to find out, obviously. So it's better to find out eventually than not at all, and then find out that everything is gone. So it could be very emotional, let's put it that way, but it might be just that you have to deal with something along these lines with shared resources. On the 17th, and this is when we get to the mid-month period, I think the energy is going to speed up because first of all, it's going to be, when we go into Aquarius, it's going to be air versus the density of earth, which is the Capricorn energy. So that can make things lighter, and it forms a nice angle to Sag, a sextile. So that's always nice as well. Okay. Capricorn is an adjacent sign to us, and it's not the same, earth and fire are totally different types of vibes, as you can imagine. So this will be more harmonious, and also just the energy of the element of air itself. So on the 17th, Venus goes into Aquarius, into the 3rd house. For Sag, this can be a time of really working on artistic projects that have a written component to it, or deriving pleasure from it. I would even say inspiration, even though Venus isn't necessarily inspiration. But when I say pleasure, sometimes people think of something that's very sensual. And of course it can be with Venus. But it can be, to me, something that's pleasurable can inspire me at a mental level, because this is a mental house. The house that Gemini rules is the 3rd house. The house that Sag rules, since Sag is the opposite sign, is the 9th house. That's a mental house too. And when Venus is in the 3rd house, it can be the pleasures of the mind. So it kind of sounds almost oxymoronic. How can you have something that's pleasurable, but it's not physical? But it's true. And that can, if you're a Sag that is interested in writing or communicating in some way, that can really spur you to do so. But even earning money through communication, the 3rd house can be social media. This can be very lucrative for you come mid-January. And it's especially the case because Pluto is in the early degrees. I don't know about this. I know at the end of the month, it'll be like, around the 21st, it'll be at 3 degrees. So it's probably around 3 degrees. So it isn't going to be, it will be in conjunction with this Venus entering into this sign. And both Venus and Pluto can confer money. So when you join them together, there's a sense of empowerment in making money through this sort of work, this sort of area. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of times people want to do things like online, and I'm talking about specifically when I talk about online because of the 3rd house. You could say that that's a direct area that is connected to online endeavors, and yet they feel like it's going to come in dribs and drabs, or not at all. Like today I just subscribed to somebody who has a Substack, where you're kind of paying like $5 a month, and you're getting these articles from somebody who's a writer and who researches things very well. They're like a citizen journalist type of person. Maybe they didn't get a degree in journalism, but they still have the writing chops down, and they're really good at what they do. And they might provide information that you can't typically get in a kind of a mainstream sort of way. And these kinds of things, YouTube channels, any of those things can be, or even all of the above, can be things that a Sag person wants to utilize to get their ideas across, but also to support themselves. And so the ideas, I think you can, when Venus is in the 3rd house, since it is ruled by Mercury, you can get a lot of money-making ideas when it's in the 2nd house and the 3rd house. You can also, if you're looking for love, you may choose to do it online. That's another possibility. If you are someone who has a kind of rocky relationship with siblings, this may be a time when you feel like in harmony with them for some reason. And again, because of that full moon in the 8th house, that might be a reason why you're being brought together with family to deal with something that's 8th house related, including death, including, and I'm not saying that it's something that will happen in January. This may be something that has already transpired and you're finally, I mean, in my case, it's not my particular family, but somebody else's, somebody close to me, and who's also a Sagittarian. And this is the time when they're going to have a memorial service. So these kinds of things can bring harmony. Or, you go through this process and now you have the harmony. Because when you're dealing with it, like if you haven't seen your siblings for years and you get together at a funeral or at a wedding or any kind of a celebration, you may not in that moment have that harmony, but later on it kind of breaks the ice and then you're able to do that. On the 18th, the next day, we have a new moon at 28 degrees of Capricorn. Again, this is that second house, so there could be new developments in your financial state altogether. That's what I would say about the second house, because yes, it can be the money that you earn, but some people are not working anymore, or maybe they're in between jobs and they just, it's not something that they're anticipating, but it could be something that you're working on. And or something, an opportunity that opens itself up to you at that time. With new moons versus solar eclipses, it is about setting intentions, being clear. It's like, I have heard the characterization of ordering from a menu and ordering to the universe what you want off of this psychic menu. Like, I want this, I want to work here, I want this kind of thing, and then letting it go. It's not that you're asking for it and then you're obsessing about it. Then you go about your business. And yes, sometimes part of that business is doing things that also increase the possibility that you're going to be able to do that thing. And then on the 19th, the sun goes into Aquarius. The very next day, Mercury goes into Aquarius. This is the third house, and Mercury is the ruler of the third in astrology. Like I said, the sun going in there means that your ambitions are directed towards that area. On the 23rd, Mars goes into that area. So that's really a real big push into getting your message across, getting the word out about something that you want to promote, and putting energy into like these kinds of social media projects or writing projects. It could be writing a novel. It doesn't have to be social media. On the 26th, Neptune goes back into Aries. Now here's another great development, because Neptune was in Pisces for many years. For Sag, this squared us, which was a bummer. Like, the more I think about it, the more I think that it really kind of put out our fire, because it's a generational planet, and Neptune is actually very idealistic. So it's not to say that Neptune is in the sign that it rules when it's in Pisces. So it's not about it being in a bad placement altogether, but for Sag, it's being in Pisces meant that it squared us off. And so when it trines us, which is the easiest angle, this is like amazing. Now, for those Sages like myself who are 20 plus degrees of Sag, you're not going to get the trine right away. You're not even going to get it within the first 10 years. It'll probably be like 10 years before you get that trine. So or I shouldn't say 10 years. I was thinking of the Pluto transit being 20 years. Halfway through the sign, well, yeah, it's like, if it's like 20 degrees, it's 2/3 of the transit. So it will be like about 10 years if it's 15 altogether. So, but this is like, for me, that's my sun sign. So my ascendant is different, and that's the natal chart. So you have to know your natal chart to know how that will affect you on a day-to-day level. But even for Sag, it's so helpful for it not to be squaring us, because Neptune is a very idealistic energy. It's a very spiritual energy. And we do not want to have friction when it comes to being idealistic. We don't want something to rub us the wrong way. And when Neptune was rubbing us the wrong way, it may have felt like you might have felt more cynical. You may have felt like, your dreams were rubbing up against reality of a situation. And even your spiritual life might have felt like kind of a little bit unraveled. And you might, even making contact like that, there might have even been some sort of disillusionment when it came to these matters too, because especially when Neptune goes retrograde. But that was hitting the 4th house of home and family. And Neptune went back into Pisces. I can't remember if it was probably in the summer, or, like in July, late June. I can't really remember when it was, but it went, I'm saying went, but it's actually in the future. I'll say it goes direct on December 10th, but it's still going to be in Pisces is the point. So in January, it comes back into Aries on the 26th of January. When this happens, that's your 5th house, and that's the house of creativity and love. And these areas, it's funny when I do charts of people who have their natal Neptune in the 5th house, it can sometimes be a disaster for their love life until they realize what they're working with, because they get so smitten by love and they're under a spell, and they find themselves gravitating towards the people that might be deceptive. They have a tendency to lie. They might be addicted. They might be criminally minded. Who knows? They might be, when I say deceptive, it's not just like garden variety lying. They might be very hard to trust in general. The point is that it can lead to falling in love with the wrong person, but it can also lead to your soulmate. So, and anybody who's artistically minded, and especially with those planets in the 3rd house, this could be you reviving some kind of artistic project because you have more inspiration. The late Wayne Dyer talked about inspiration. He said in spirit, because he wanted it to be seen as something that was spiritual. And it is something that's spiritual. But the only thing about it is sometimes it doesn't seem like we're on. Sometimes it may feel like we don't have that sense of spiritual inspirations or visions, and it helps to have this boost to our creative sector, because then we are coming from an even deeper place and a healing place, really. Okay, that's what I have for you, Sag. I hope that this resonated. And if you would like a private reading, I'm promoting my double readings. I even have a triple reading with a full-length tarot reading called The Whole Enchilada. My double readings, I have a couple of them. One that is very popular is my deep dive reading, which is an hour of natal chart analysis and an hour of transits for a special price, especially at this time as we are set to enter a new year and a new chapter. This can be a time when we're already kind of visualizing or imagining what we want to bring into our reality. And this is an accompaniment to that, where you can really just kind of see the astrological trends for your particular chart. If you're listening, for instance, if you're listening as a sun in Sagittarius, understand that a lot of predictive astrology is based on the natal chart, and that is based on your rising sign with your exact time of birth. It's a whole new level. And when you're listening on YouTube, you can't get accurate timing for things because of every chart being different, even within one sign. So it's so important to be able to see that chart and also to know what it means for each of those transits. You can find out more information at the link below. Thank you so much for listening, and happy birthday to those people listening in December who have December birthdays. Take care. Bye.